So for anyone who doesn't know, I've been at Autodesk for just over 5 years now. I am ex-industry, so within Autodesk I'm the plant and infrastructure tech specialist for Autodesk Australia and New Zealand. I am based in Perth. I was originally in Melbourne, and I'm like I said, ex-industry. I've worked in water, I've worked in oil and gas, I worked civil and structural, so my experience is pretty varied. And for today's webinar, we are going to cover what's in the plant suites, so how the interoperability can work between the plant suites, and then also things like items that aren't in the suite. So if you're working with someone who's using Civil 3D and you're using a plant project, you can see how we can interact between those two packages. We can also have a look at Inventor and Plant 3D. That's within the suites, but again, it's just a workflow that some people might not be aware of. MEP is a new thing for the 2016 suites that came out last year. So we got rid of AutoCAD structural detailing, which is obviously as a result of us getting advanced steel. But we can talk about how MEP within the plant suites can work back and forth with your pipers as well. So if you've got people who are doing cable tray or ductwork and that sort of stuff, then it's easy to do. Advanced steel and Plant 3D I've covered before, but again, I'll just give a quick brief overview of that and how the two packages work side by side on a plant project. And then finally, the last 2 points there, I guess, which are the basis of this collaboration webinar, is Navisworks and BIM360 Glue. So Navisworks, if anyone isn't aware, is inside pretty much all of our suites. Depending on which flavor of suite you get, it will be either Navisworks Simulate or Navisworks Manage. So we're going to look at Navisworks Manage today. It contains clash detection, timelining, and just sort of walking around and reviewing the model. So the difference between Manage and Simulate is basically just clash detection. And finally, there's a package there, BIM360 Glue, very, very handy package for if you're doing collaboration, either even in the same city or even across the country or even globally. It's just one of those tools I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of Navisworks, and with BIM360 Glue you have that one central model where people can review, walk around, and even clash detect in the cloud. And in that way you don't have to bother about emailing or tracking files and making sure that everyone has the latest and greatest. For now, everyone's on mute. I will do a Q&A session at the end with my details there, so we can have a bit of a chat. If you don't have time or don't feel like talking through GoToMeeting, my details will be published later, and you guys can email me. And being based in Australia and covering Australia and New Zealand, we can do either online demos, or if through my travels I can come in and see you and have a more direct and one-to-one kind of discussion. Contents of the plant suite itself for 2016, and what you see on the screen here is the Ultimate Suite, which I have installed. And also, I guess as part of this collaboration webinar, we're going to have a quick look also at Civil 3D, which is in our Infrastructure Design Suite, and also Advanced Steel and BIM360 Glue. So these are not part of the plant suite, but we will talk about them. So what you see on the screen here is, like I said before, the Plant Design Suite Ultimate. We won't go into really too much detail about 3ds Max. AutoCAD is the base product, so it is obviously in all of the suites. We will be covering MEP. Again, it's a workflow, it's not necessarily on how to use it, but what we can do with MEP and Plant 3D together. Obviously Plant 3D is in there, so we will cover typing equipment and structural modelling within Plant 3D. The next two that you see beside it are part of the plan installation, so the spec editor and report creator, which again we won't go into, but if you look at my other YouTube videos, they are listed there as well. Inventor will come up in today's session, so we will have a look at how to bring in your Inventor models into a plant project, and again, show how we can export from a completely different file format into something that plant can read and utilize. Recap we won't bother going into, showcase neither. Navisworks Manage will make an appearance towards the end of this because it's just one of those tools. I've been a big fan of Navisworks for years, even before I joined Autodesk. It's just one of those packages I think that is vital on every desktop, regardless of project. It's just something that you should be using to clash the timeline, even just to walk around in your model, and then that way you can get a good feel of what your project is going to be doing. As we get towards the end of the suite there, we've got raster design. Raster design is just one of those tools to convert from raster to vector. Again, I'm not really going to be covering too much in today's session. I guess it's something you can probably utilize at the beginning of a project when you're looking at using old drawings or old PDFs and that sort of thing. Lastly there you can see is Revit structure. So Revit structure is something that we can use within the software to talk to the plant models. We do have a couple of workflows there, but it is easier to export from Revit into Advanced Steel, which we have covered in past videos, but we will cover Advanced Steel to Plant 3D today. So there's your plant suite. Like I said, we're not going to cover everything in it, but we will be covering the majority of the 3D modeling side of the suite. So like I said, for things like the MEP for the plant and the Inventor, and then bringing it all into Navisworks there towards the end to get buy-in and to show those collaborative workflows between all of the different packages, between everything inside the plant suite and even outside the plant suite. Anything that's really AutoCAD based is something that will talk to one another. Just jumping into the infrastructure design suite here. So again, I'm not going to cover everything other than really just look at how Civil 3D is going to be utilized on a plant project. So again, you might be working on it yourself, or you might be working on a company that is utilizing it. Revit OneBox is in the suite there, but for this exercise, we're just going to sort of gloss over and skip over it. Advanced Steel will come up in today's discussion, so we're going to talk about how to go from Advanced Steel to Plant, and even Plant into Advanced Steel. So that's a proven workflow for a while. And lastly, we're going to look at how everything can come together inside BIM360 Glue as well as Navisworks, and to show that workflow between offices or between countries. So what I've done here, I've created my plant project, and as is normal practice, we've got PNID, Plant 3D drawings, and related files. The PNIDs is pretty self-explanatory. I've done other YouTube videos on doing that and setting them up. But what I'm going to have a look at here is creating some of the folders and files under the plant. So I'm going to start off with some folders. And I'm just going to leave them under the normal directory. So we're going to create areas. So I'm going to say that there's area 1. And then area 2. And area 3. Subsequently, under each of those areas, we can make other subfolders again. So underneath area 1, I'm going to say, let's call it mechanical. So for equipment, I'm going to say structural. But what I'm going to do under structural is create two folders. So I'm going to create a Plant 3D folder, and I'm also going to create an Advanced Steel folder. Because what's going to end up here is with the two disciplines, the pipers are going to create their conceptualized structural models under the Plant 3D directory, and then we're going to export them out and bring them in and place them under the Advanced Steel. So the Advanced Steel guys or girls are going to work underneath this folder here. So what else have we got here? We're obviously going to need to do some piping. And within the suites, we've also got MEP, so I'm going to create an MEP folder. I'm going to create, maybe let's do a civil, and I can also do an inventor. Okay, so our civil drawings are going to go under here, models, inventor models, any mechanical ones that were done within Plant 3D, MEPs in AutoCAD MEP, piping, structure. Okay, so we're just going to follow through and do the rest under area 2. Inventor, mechanical, MEP, piping, structural, and then subfolders underneath the structural of Advanced Steel and Plant 3D. And then lastly, we'll just do the same for civil. Inventor, mechanical, area 3 MEP, area 3 piping, area 3 structural, and then the subfolders underneath structural. So Advanced Steel and Plant 3D. Okay. So now all of our disciplines within the project have their folders in here. If you wanted to also, what we can do, so I'm going to create a civil site plan directory underneath the related file. So this might be an overall site plan using Civil 3D, and then I can link a Civil 3D file to that, or I can copy it to the project, and we'll have a look at that later in the Civil section. So now that we've got all of our directories under here, what we're going to do is start populating some of these folders. So what I'm going to do is just work in area 1, and then we're going to start creating some models. Okay, so to save a bit of time, I've obviously created a couple models using the Plant 3D tools. So I've got some mechanical components in here. I've got a reboiler, a couple tanks or vessels, and I've got a handful of pumps. So this might be your piper doing this. You might have a whole separate group doing this. So this is one model with a few bits of equipment in it. You might end up creating 2 models depending on how many people are working on your project and size of the project and that sort of stuff. But here for the size of this area 1, we've got one mechanical model. So while someone is building up those equipment models, you would have the pipers doing their piping models. And we've also got possibly the pipers or even the structural group or the structural department using the structural tools within Plant 3D. So just to see how it's all going to tie together, I'm just going to leave the piping model open, run the xref command, and then we're going to attach my other models. So if we go to my C drive, go to area 1, mechanical, so we're going to attach the equipment, and then we're going to attach also the structure. So they're all just done as overlay. You can see here that we have this sort of area 1 now all coming together. So that because they're all xrefs, you know, whatever you do in one, the xref will notify you of the change in the second one. So if the mechanical guys are laying out their equipment, what they're going to do is maybe attach the structural models. Okay, so you can see here that the two disciplines will work together to come up with a solution for something like this top platform. Okay, so let's say for argument's sake I was one of the structural users and I turned around and I did a new beam coming across, let's put it over here in this bay here. So I'm just going to grab the member, match the existing properties from something else. So it's a 200 UB, its connection is to the center. So I'm just going to run from midpoint to midpoint. Okay, it's on layer structure, so we're going to put that on layer structure as well. And then we're going to copy it down. Okay, so we've just got two new members in there. So your structural users, or it could be the pipers, will come through. And then you can see down the bottom right here it says that the external reference has changed. So we're just going to reload that structural file, and then you can see that those members are in there. So that'll be the basis of our workflow within Plant 3D. Each discipline will work on its own model and they'll all get xref'd across one another. So what we're going to do for each individual area is I'm going to create a new drawing, and I'm just going to call it area 01 master. So this file will be the one that will just be for everything attached into it for area 1. So if I go to my mechanical, I'm going to attach my equipment. I'm going to attach my piping, and I'm going to attach my structure. So what this file at the moment, it looks very similar to my piping drawing where I've got everything else attached to it. But this area 1 model will slowly build up and it will get bigger and bigger as we introduce more equipment, more structure, etc. into it. Okay, so this is also a file that we can start doing underneath the plant drawings. I can go new drawing, and I can put in here overall project model. Okay, so this is the overall file where we're going to attach area 1, area 2 and area 3 together, and then we'll get one big file. But at the moment it's nothing, it's blank, and then we'll slowly keep building up area 1, and then eventually it'll become part of our overall project model. So just for now, we've spoken about mechanical, piping and plant structure getting together. And in the next series of videos we're going to have a look at civil, inventor, MEP and advanced steel all tying back in together into this project. Alright, so we've looked at mechanical piping and structural within Plant 3D and how they interact with each other. So you'd have possibly your pipers doing some of your mechanical layouts, plus maybe some conceptual structural layouts, and again being all within the one piece of software. They just XREF one another, so one group can see what the other person is doing. So now let's have a look at starting at the top of the tree. If you've got any civil within the project. So I've got my civil directory here, and I'm just going to jump into Civil 3D, and I'm going to open up on my desktop. I've got a file that's got a surface in it. I just happen to put a building pad in it, so you can see there that we've got some cut and fill just to give it a bit of depth, I guess, in regards to seeing what's going to happen out there on site. So this is nothing really that special inside civil. I've got my datum point there, so I know where it is in relation to the plant. So again, it's just a plain old civil drawing with some surfaces in it. So I'm just going to save that. I'm going to jump back into Plant 3D, and what we're going to do is we've got a couple options here. Is I can copy the drawing to the project. So I'm going to copy that civil drawing in. Okay. Now what that means is that that model is now part of the plant directory structure, and it just means that anyone working on that civil project will need to navigate to the directory they're working in and work from there. So that's where your main civil people will work. So I'm just a bit of a fan of the way the directory structure is laid out in Plant, because if you pick up the whole directory, you can give it to someone and they can keep working and running with it. Your other option within this is to put it under the related files. So if you want to, you can copy it to the related files folder, or you can link it to the directory where you're working. So if I wanted to, I could work off my desktop and just link back to that file. The only thing is that I can see at the moment would be within creating orthographics. The related files don't appear, but the Plant 3D models do. So you've got two options there. So now, if I jump into my master model, so you can see here there's nothing in this file other than 3 XREFs. So what I'm going to do now is attach my civil model to here. Okay, so now I've got my civil layout as an XREF in my project, and my plant guys can see where they are in relation to that building pad, and subsequently the civil guys will see my piping model. So if I just save that, jump back into Civil 3D, and if I open that same model, Area 1, Civil, so this is now where my civil guys are working from the plant directory structure. So I'm now working inside my civil model, and I want to see where my mechanical layout is going to be, and there it is there. So I can do the same with my piping and my structural. So let's just attach my structural model in here. Okay, so this is inside Civil 3D. You can see there's my surfaces, and there's my plant model inside there as well. So your civil guys will be able to XREF the piping models, and the pipers and mechanical and structural inside Plant 3D will be able to review where the civil model and what's happening on the civil site in regards to what they're doing for their structure and for their equipment layouts and for the structural layouts. So there might be a time where you're working on a plant project and you know that someone you're dealing with, either I guess within your own project or within your company, or again another third-party company, and you know that they are doing the particular piece of equipment whether it's a tank, a vessel, a reboiler pump possibly, whatever it might be. It might already be done in Inventor. So what you can do to collaborate with the Inventor people is get them to give you the ADSK file, which means that there's less work for the plant users to do, and you're going to get a more accurate model of what's going to be positioned out on site. So here I've got this part in Inventor. It's pretty simple. There's a base on this tank, and then just one single nozzle. Again, nothing too fancy for this example. But what you want to do is under your Inventor ribbon here, there's a button or a ribbon called BIM Exchange. So I'm just going to run the BIM Exchange. And you can see I don't need to redo it, but if you wanted to place a pipe connector, it would be handy because that means it's inside Plant 3D, there's less work for you to do. So I've already created a pipe connector. I've indicated that it's an outlet, not an inlet. And then I would finish the BIM Exchange. And then what that means is under your project, you get an ADSK file. So now we can bring that ADSK file into Plant 3D. So under my Inventor tab for Area 1, I've already created an Area 1 Inventor 001 drawing. And it's empty, there's nothing in it. So the equipment users would, instead of creating a normal piece of equipment, they convert Inventor equipment. So we look for that ADSK file, place it at 0, 0, orientate it north. Now Plant's going to ask me what kind of vessel it is, so I'm just going to say that it is a normal vessel. I can say it's a pump, I can say it's a furnace, but for this exercise it's purely just a vessel. So you can see here, if I switch to wireframe, that there's my nozzle. I've got my drip glyph there, so it's telling me that it's an open-ended pipe connection. If I click on it, I've got some nozzle values in there. So it's nozzle 1. I don't have an equipment tag, but I can. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to change this to one of the classes that I do have in my piping project, and I'm going to call it up as a 4-inch raised face 150-pound flange. So I've got my size, I've got my spec, and now when I just click on Route Pipe, I connect to the node, and then Plant just lets me run pipe straight off it. So now I can get more detailed equipment models into Plant 3D and have the Inventor guys talking to the Plant guys. Obviously, one of the, I suppose, cons of this is if the Inventor model changes, then you will need to reconnect these flanges again. But that's, to me, in my mind, that's a depending on how many nozzles there are. If there are a lot of nozzles, it might take you a while, but at least your equipment is going to be really quite accurate. And then again, we can continue to add these models into our overall plant project. So as we progress through our project, we might get some MEP buy-in. So what you can see on screen here is, again, within the plant suite is AutoCAD MEP, and I've drawn up some cable trays. It could be ducting. You've got different types of equipment and fittings and all sorts of things inside MEP. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail in regards to how to use the software, but just to show that we can get some buy-in between the MEP users and the plant users. So once I've modeled this in, so let's say I've started this and I'm just going to save it onto my desktop. And then I'm going to jump back into Plant 3D and look under my MEP for Area 1. I'm going to copy that MEP file into my plant project. And now you can see it's in there. Okay, so just to show as an overall, we'll go into the Area 1 master file. Just to make things a little bit more lightweight, I'm just going to turn off the civil. So here's our equipment, our piping, our plant structure, and then I'm going to attach my MEP model, overlay 0, 0, 1 to 1. Okay, so here you can see my cable trays running along that pipe rack, and then we can get all of the disciplines looking at each of their models together. Now, the MEP guys might be saying, well, what are they going to see? So if I jump back to MEP, so I'm going to open the one off the project. So I'm not going to look at my one on the desktop anymore because that's redundant. So now I'm inside AutoCAD MEP looking at my cable tray model, and I'm going to attach the piping model from area 1 as an overlay at 0, 0, and there it is there. So even with the object enablers, we can see that if I maybe look from the left here, I can see that that cable tray might be interfering maybe a little bit with that pipe, but we can sort all of that out either now, or we can wait to see if there's any clashes inside Navisworks. So here we are with my piping 3D, my plant 3D piping model inside MEP. So your MEP users would keep working under the plant directory structure. So same thing goes for the piping guys inside plant. We can see all of the MEP objects inside plant 3D. So one of the last areas we're going to talk about within the plant project and collaborating, I guess, between disciplines and different software is Advanced Steel. Now, Advanced Steel isn't part of the plant suite, but it is certainly part of any plant project. So I've got my plant structural model. Nothing really too special in here. This concreted area is actually a footing that I've just made, I think 25 by 25 square meters. We've got some various footings. Some of these columns here, so if I edit the structure, you'll see that they are Australian 150 EC 37.2 columns. We've got other Australian members. We've got some ladders and handrail and that sort of stuff. So this is what your plant or pipers or someone on your plant project might convey as an idea for a structural model for that project. So under 2016 in Plant 3D, we've got this Advanced Steel XML export. So I'm just going to output it to my desktop and call it collaboration webinar. And the objects I'm going to do all. Okay, so I can, if I had more time, I guess I could go through and not select the handrails and not select the stairs and the cage ladder there, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to come across. It just means that they're going to come across as single entities, but we're going to rebuild them anyway inside Advanced Steel. So once I export that out, you see down the bottom right-hand side there is the ribbon there, that the progress bar that tells us how far we're going along. So we're done there. So I'm just going to jump over to Advanced Steel now. And under the Advanced Steel ribbon, I can import and export different options. I can import and export Revit and synchronize, export to Navisworks. I can export different IFCCS to SDNF, but I want to look for Advanced Import. So it just means it's the Advanced Steel file format. So the XML file, and you can see just on the edge of the screen there that everything's getting recreated, and then you can see within a few seconds there that we've got that whole model recreated. So this is what I mean by the handrails come out as individual entities. They're not grouped together as a handrail, but we can sort all of that out later. So as a temporary function, I'm going to save this as a file on my desktop. So again, I'm going to call it area 01 structure -001, and then I'm going to underscore it with AS at the end to indicate that it's an Advanced Steel file. So we close that in Advanced Deal, we jump back into Plant 3D, and under the structural portion of Area 1, under the Advanced Deal directory, I'm going to copy that file into my plant project. Okay, and then here it is. So I can look at all of the properties of it. I can see any user attributes, length, weight, and even what kind it is. So there's the power of your two object enablers working between Advanced Deal and Plant. So now I'm going to save this. It's inside my Plant project. And then with Advanced Deal, I'm going to go back and open that file that is now part of my project. So now my Advanced Deal users are working inside my plant directory. So that's my civil object enablers. So I'm just going to say don't show them. So what I'm going to do is just go through and start tinkering with these handrails and ladders and that sort of stuff that we know we're going to get rid of later anyway. So just get rid of them. So just deleting some of these members, and then what I'm going to do is show you what it looks like inside Plant 3D. So I've gotten rid of those ladders. And let's also get rid of, so there's an object here. So Advanced Deal has its own stair macro, so I don't need the Plant 3D stairs. Again, I could have deselected them when I did the export, but just for time and effort, we didn't bother. And then what else have we got here? So let's get rid of the rest of these handrails. Okay, so we've gotten rid of some of these objects in here. I'm going to save that again, jump back into Plant 3D, and there you can see there is some of those items in that model that have been deleted. So even though we can see it inside Plant 3D, obviously the best practice is to not use Plant 3 to edit them. You would use each individual product to show each part. So if I close that, if I open up my master model now, so I'm just going to, again, just for performance sake, just unload my civil drawing, and then I'm going to attach my Advanced Deal model. Okay, and let's unload my plant one. So here you can see there's my Advanced Deal objects with my plant objects together. So your disciplines would be working side by side. The pipers working in their mechanical and their piping models, the structural guys working, and then every now and again down the bottom right hand side you will see an XREF update balloon. It just means that saved from the other discipline, and then this model would continuously be updated. So what's going to happen through the course of the project, you're obviously going to need to bring in all the disciplines together. So it might not be particularly through Plant 3D. You might have someone who's also got Revit. You might have someone who's got more detailed inventor models. So this is the tool or the package that you would use to bring all of those together. So again, entirely dependent on your circumstances, your project, who's got what piece of software. You might have someone who's using one of our competitor software, and Navisworks will bring that in also. So as a start, let's start off with the civil layout. So there's our building pad. Now there's our surface with its cut and fill. So I'm going to start appending our models. So I've got my inventor models, my mechanical, so the rest of the equipment. So there you can see the rest of our tanks and pumps. And let's start going down the tree, our MEP models, our piping models, and our plant structure. Okay. If you really wanted to, we could append the advanced steel model. So I'm going to append the advanced steel file, and let's look at the selection tree. So if I turn off the plant structure, you'll see here the advanced steel structure, and I've gone through and detailed that model, so you can see there's all our nuts, bolts, there's our shear plate connections, okay, some beam supports in there as well. So what is Navisworks going to do for you? The first one is obviously just walking around the model. So we can go through, check out a few things. We can go through and identify items or objects. So if we look at the properties of it, you can see here that is a gate valve. It has a tag of GA221. Looks like it's been copied, so it hasn't been updated yet. It's a 1-inch line. Also, if we click on the pipe, yeah, it's a A106 grade B seamless, shed 46-inch in size as well. So this is, I guess, the main reason you'd be using Navisworks. If you wanted to go through and walk around the model, so you've got this realism button here where we've got third person, and when I do walk, I click on the walk button, I can turn on collision, gravity and crouching. So you can see here that my little avatar can walk around, so we can get an idea. So let's just rotate that around a bit. You can see here that this avatar does get good access to some of these valves if need be for operational purposes. If we really wanted to, we can get him to walk around. So there's my advanced steel stairs and my platform. So I can get him to walk up the stairs. Okay, and there he is there. So if we had valves or anything up here on this platform, we'd be able to identify them and work out if we need to get better access to them as well. So we've got all these tools inside Navisworks. One of the other ones that you probably use a lot of is under the review. So depending on your status on the project or the type of role that you have, the review ribbon here, we can get point-to-point measurement. So if I want to measure between points, I can measure between corners and corners. So let's measure from there to over here somewhere. So you can see there we got about just under 3 meters of distance between there. And you've also got on the right hand side here this XYZ, so it's telling me that I'm a little bit off in my X, but there's my delta values in there as well. So all of these can be incorporated into your project. I can make text markups and even draw revision clouds if I really wanted to as well, and even look at doing some comments. Now, because we're using Navisworks Manage, and again, this is just something that I find that's really, really important, will be things like clash. So we want to know anywhere within the project what's going to hit something else. So again, depending on your role on the project and who's doing what, we want to know maybe where like a piece of a valve is clashing with something. Maybe it's going to hit a piece of equipment that we've got to buy, or there's a long lead-in time on it. So it just means that we need to find these clashes quickly, and this is how we're going to do it. So within Navisworks, we load up the clash detective. So I'm going to add a test. So I'm just going to call it webinar test 1. Now, what are we going to check? So I want to check my mechanical model against my piping model, I've got a tolerance here of 0.001 meters. You can obviously change that to suit. We've got different types of clashes, and then we just basically click on the clash button. So it looks like there's no issues there between the equipment and the piping. So maybe I want to clash the piping and the advanced steel model. So there we have an issue already. Okay, so there's a couple clashes going through. It looks like it's picked up that the pipe is going to go through our slab or our footing. So there's another one there. It's going to go through the floor. That looks like it's a dummy leg going through the floor. Let's find something that's a little bit more. There we go. So it's highlighted here that that elbow is clashing with that member there. You can see it's just clashing on the inside of that radius. So what we can do with that is maybe go back to the company or the client or the person who's modeled in this area. We can make note of it to them. We can highlight it, and we can also send them a report to say that, you know, have a look at the models and determine whether the structure has to move or whether the pipe or the elbow has to move. So this is what you're going to find with Navisworks. So you can see here there's a pipe support. It's clashing. So I can even turn around and assign it. So this clash number 15 here, I can assign it to someone. So I can say, Bob the designer, please determine who is in the wrong here, and go OK. Okay, we can add other comments, but basically you can even come back and run a report on this. So I'm going to run a report as a HTML file, stick it on my desktop. Okay, and then when I do look at my desktop now, I can double click on that HTML file, and there's all of our changes there. So if I look for clash number 15, okay, so there's the clash. If I click on the image, it shows me a pretty picture of it. And if I go back, you can see here, there's the comment done by me, assigned to Bob the designer, please determine who's in the wrong here. Okay, so that's, again, just a short, quick example of what you can do within Navisworks to collaborate, I guess, between disciplines and between models, projects, whatever you want. So this is where the Clash Detective comes in. So lastly is something, there's a function within Navisworks called Timeliner. So what we can do is basically animate the project. So I can slowly build it up. It's something that you might want to look at. So we can add CSV files or Microsoft Project or even Primavera projects. I unfortunately don't have one, but just as an example, I'm going to automatically generate these tasks, and then you can see here when we simulate the project, you can see here there's a date, there's a time, which day the project it is, which week number, and then we can slowly build up that project, and you can see that everything gets built up one by one. We can determine whether something is going to be installed or whether something's going to be demolished. Okay, very handy way for you to get your message across to anyone that's working on a project as well. Okay, so again, following on from our Navisworks models, there might come a point where you want to share the model with third parties outside of your office, within the company in another city or overseas, or again, anyone else who's got buy-in who might not be necessarily in your office there. So what you do have is the option to upload your model to BIM360 Glue. So this is my Glue site, and I've created Glue project for this, and I have also uploaded the Navisworks file. So within BIM360 Glue, we can just look at it. It's kind of essentially, I guess you want to call it Navisworks in the cloud. It doesn't get all the features that Navisworks does, but you get a good portion of them. So we can still go through and walk around our model as you would in Navisworks. So you can see here I've got my advanced steel models in here, I've got my plant models, I've got my civil models. So anything I select, so I can look at the properties of that. Let's drag this over from my other screen so we can see that it's a inline asset of the Area 1 piping model. And then we can look at even the AutoCAD entities, which in Navisworks are the Plant 3D entities in there. And then same thing with the tanks and then the vessels, everything else. Tank T100, so it's 6 and 8 inch nozzles on it, etc., etc. So if you're familiar with Navisworks, you'll be very familiar with BIM360. We've got some measuring functions, so point to point, again, very similar to Navisworks. I can append other models, so you can see I can create new nose models. If you are using BIM360 Field, you can create equipment sets and even share them with Field. But over here, I can turn files on and off. So again, very similar to the way Navisworks works. So I'll just go back and turn them back on. Any views I want to create. So, and again, if you're working with someone, I live here in Perth, so if I send this model to someone who's working in Brisbane, they can go and create views, and then again, whatever they do with these views, then I can see those views as well. Any comments and markups. So let's say, for argument's sake, I want to do something about this valve here. So I can add a markup. So let's pick a color, just put it in red, put in some text, and then I'll say move valve for whatever reason, and then I can just draw a comment around that and save it. So now it says that valve needs to be moved. I can edit that comment, or I can even notify someone. So if I go to notify, I don't have any other project members other than myself, so if I want to notify myself, I can say please move valve, and then I send it. So what that means is I'm going to get an email, or again, whoever is on the project is going to get an email and to say that they need to move that valve. And it's all in the cloud, so you don't have to worry about who's got the latest revision or version. If you're maintaining the project, and you decide when the latest version gets up there. Activities is an important one as well, because you can see here who did what. So I uploaded that model and I added the new view, and again, same thing, I can go through and notify people of that. But I guess similar to Navisworks, we can go through and find some clashes. So I can just basically go through and clash itself against itself with a tolerance of, let's put in there 10 millimeters, and I'll call it just webinar 1. We go find clashes. So it's got a few clashes in there, so we've got over 100. And again, we're comparing everything against everything. So whatever I do, so it's saying there's a clash there, clash there. So you can see, if anyone remembers from the Navisworks portion of it, that some of those advanced steel models were clashing with the pipe. So we are going to see a lot of those coming through there too. So again, very, very handy that we can do all of these clashes in the cloud, and again, they are part of that cloud model. So it doesn't matter what happens if we disconnect, that is all going to be stored in the cloud, and we don't have to worry about who did what, because we can track all the activities. We can still walk around the model here, so we do have also the walking tool, and we can turn on the third person, plus turn on collision, gravity, and crouching. So you can see here, I can walk my little avatar around, we can see here that there's even a couple clashes we can just pick up straight away. So we can go through. If I was to do a markup on that, so I'll add a new one. Let's come back and do it in yellow for argument's sake. Put a cloud around that and say that valve clashing with equipment. And there it is there. So that has been saved. And again, same thing, I can go through and notify various people of that. So you can see I can just keep recalling those over and over again. So it doesn't matter what I do around the model and where I walk around. We can collaborate between different companies, different groups, different disciplines, whatever we need to do. And that's basically about it for BIM360 Glue. So we've gone through creating the plant project. Again, different people get different buy-in on certain parts of the project. We've used Navisworks, and then we've spoken about BIM360 Glue. Okay, so I guess that's pretty much covered everything that we can talk about in regards to the plant suites, interoperability and collaboration of the products within the suites and of products outside of the suites. Like I said earlier on, I'm a big fan of Navisworks. Anything that you're doing on a project, 3D, even 2D, you've got quantification inside Navisworks. It's just one of those tools that I think you should have on every project, and even with collaborating between our competitors' products. So for things like if you're using MicroStation or PDS or even SmartPlant, that sort of stuff. My details are there on the screen. Obviously that's my full name there. I am on LinkedIn, so feel free to touch base with me on LinkedIn. There is my email address, so I've got no qualms if you want to email me. Shoot me an email. I can go over this in sort of more detail on your own project, and we can have a talk about what you think you need to see or to do on that project, and then we can take it from there. I do publish videos under our Autodesk ANZ YouTube site, so try to do something once a week on there. So just go to YouTube, look up Autodesk ANZ, and then have a look through there. There's lots of videos on plant, there's manufacturing, and AEC and buildings and rubbish and all that kind of stuff. So now I'm going to put it out to any questions. If anyone has, feel free to ask. Otherwise, like I said, you can just email me and then we can go over it personally. So feel free to ask away. If there's anything I've missed, anything you want to know, anything that you maybe currently have and you think that anything I've shown today might help. So it doesn't look like anyone has anything. It's been a good webinar. I've covered everything. Everyone seems to be happy. Yes, I've got a question. Will I be emailing the link to the video recording? Yes, it will be. So as soon as I finish this, it'll be uploaded to our webinar website. So you will get an email, and then again, yeah, you can play it back at your own leisure. But yes, definitely it'll be up there. Hopefully in the next day or two once we're done here. Cool. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. Like I said, one query from Dean would be using recap files for point cloud scans as a reference. Yes. So I didn't unfortunately cover recap, but Recap's been around for a while for us, so yeah, you can bring in all your point cloud scans into Recap, and then any Autodesk product will bring those Recap projects into whether it's Plant, whether it's Revit, whether it's Inventor. Particularly with the Plant side of things, we can pick up center lines of point clouds. So that way, if you're doing a brownfield site, we can find the center of a pipe, even though it's a point cloud. And then from that center line, you can convert that line to a pipe and then do your tie-ins from there as well. Again, Dean, it just depends on what you're doing. You could bring it into Plant and you could bring it into Navisworks. So if you bring it into Plant, again, you'd just be doing it as a tie-in for a brownfields. If you brought it into Navisworks, again, it depends if you want to view it inside your Navisworks, if you want to show off to your customer or to your client the brownfields, so the existing plant, and then you could bring that into Navisworks. So you'd overlay, maybe a new bypass line, maybe you're taking a piece of pipe out or structure out, and then you're replacing it with new stuff. So it just entirely depends on what you want to show. I have seen the point clouds going to BIM360 Glue as well, so they're all up in the cloud. It's just if you're the administrator of that project, and it depends if you want to show other people those point clouds, then you do have the option to upload them into BIM360 Glue as well. Point clouds from Faro software. So what I might do just quickly is I will load up, and you'll see on my screen. So what I'm going to do is load up Recap. Fire it up, and I will show you the file types that it brings in. So I'll just bring it over to the screen. So there's one of the existing ones. So this is just to answer Dean's question. There's my Recap project. We can bring it in there. And then if I was to load up Plant 3D, while that loads in the background. So if I was to create a new project and selecting the files to import, so to answer Sid's question, so we got those, we can bring in obviously other Recap scans, we've got FLS and FWS Faro files, and we've also got any Faro projects, Leica, ZFS files, ASCII top cons, even raw text files or even XYZ files. So that's what Recap will bring in. And then once it's in Recap as a project, so if I load up, let's load up let's create a new one. So I'll just create a new piping project and call it Recap Piping. So if you're inside Plant 3D, you go up to the Insert command up on the ribbon and you click on Attach a Recap Project. So I'm going to attach that other one that I just showed in Recap before. So it comes in similar to just a vanilla XREF kind of thing. We can insert an insertion point. I'm just going to leave it at 0, 0. Qubit license. So now that I've got that point cloud there, you can see that I can walk around and have a look at things in there. So if I'm doing a tie-in on this pipe here and I want to interrogate it, maybe find the center line of it. So within, this is a Plant 3D function. You click on center line, and if I click on that pipe in the point cloud, so I haven't done anything else yet. So what I'm going to do now is unload it, and then you can see all I'm left with is the center line of that pipe. So I've got a feeling, I think it was a 300 mil line. So I can go line to pipe. Come on, something's locked up. Line to pipe. So now it's converted that center line into a pipe, and if I reload my point cloud on top of it again, so let's go to top. Okay, so you can see there that I've guessed about right that it looks like it's a 300 diameter line on that point cloud. So what we can do now is turn around and look at the properties of that pipe, and we will call it up as the status as existing. So then that way it's not going to get counted, and then what we can do is turn around and do, so maybe I want to run a 100 mil branch off it. Okay, so then I can just start running pipe off that. So that means that it would end up being a the isometric would come out with your new pipe, and then with the existing pipe shown in dashed, and then that way you can continue to run that. So and again, same thing with Navisworks. If I load up my Navisworks project, if you really wanted to show it inside your Navisworks model, we can bring in point clouds into Navisworks. So I'm just loading up Navisworks quickly, and what we're going to do is attach a point cloud. So it will be here somewhere. Where is it? A recap project. So I just navigate to wherever my recap projects are. So there's my, so if you look at the file types, you've got the project and the scan itself. So I'm just going to attach the project, and then you've got that model in there as well inside Navisworks. So again, it's just entirely, you can bring it into any of the packages, so we can overlay my plant model plus my recap project in there, and then have a look at the difference between the two. And obviously Clash works with that. So again, it's just one of those things. I think every project should have Navisworks Manage and Clash all day, every day, because you just don't know what you're going to find when you get out on site. Dean, as well, just before we finish up, if you want to, just email me again. I'll just show my screen. And again, we can go over this as a one by one, and same thing for you with Syed. Just touch base with me, and then we can have a look at it as a one-on-one. Cool. All right, well, thank you very much. We're going to end it here, and like the question said before, we're going to upload this to our website, and then you'll be able to view it at your own pleasure. Thanks, guys.